So, the Europe Builds podcast is all about uncovering the untapped knowledge within the European startup ecosystem. And there's no better place to be than the DOERS Summit, where for the very first time, founders, investors, and operators are meeting up to turn their ideas into reality.
The timing also couldn't be better. Some European problems may persist, but we're finally seeing winds of change, from the new Commission's competitiveness compass to reducing internal market barriers. There's a lot of room for growth and a lot of room for hope. So for all of this and more, join us for this series of Europe Builds episodes showcasing some of the greatest founders, operators, and investors from the DOERS Summit.
Thanks for having me today.
Tell me, how many hours did it take you to get here?
So it took me almost 2 days, basically this time, because I was traveling from Ukraine. And as you know, the airlines do not fly into Ukraine, unfortunately. So we are all hoping for faster resolution of the situations that happened, basically the full-scale war that was unprovoked by Ukrainian side. But even with that, all Ukrainian startups have to develop and to show their resilience. And I'm also on a mission to showcase our resilience by coming here and showing up.
It's impressive.
Yeah, very impressive. I'm a journalist covering geopolitics, so I would normally have a billion questions about your intro, but I want to allow you to give an intro a little bit to our audience, right? So Oleksandr Yaroshenko, Head of Strategy and Investment at Headway. And just to give a little bit of a blurb of what Headway is, it's an edtech company focused on bite-sized learning, right? More than 130 million happy users worldwide, if I'm not mistaken.
That's absolutely true.
Awesome. But I will now give you the floor, and I'm sure everybody at DOERS has been asking you the same. But who are you and what do you do? So tell us a little bit about Headway.
So I'm Oleks Yaroshenko, as I name it, at least internationally. In Ukraine, I go by Oleksandr or Sasha. And for the last 4 years, I was lucky enough to become a part of Headway's growth journey. And before that, I started with management consulting, later on moved into tech and broke into tech basically with Genesis, which is one of the largest tech companies in CEE. And I worked with the CEO and founder of Genesis before that. And then it basically evolved very organically that I met Anton, who is the CEO of Headway. I adored how he was thinking about product, about bringing value to the customers, but at the same time balancing it out with the business needs that basically allowed this product to survive and to strive in these challenging conditions and in a saturated market of educational technology. And right now, Headway is a powerhouse in terms of educational products. We have already 5 different distinctive products which are serving people and helping them to grow. And as you correctly mentioned, we have more than 130 million customers in 170 countries. Yeah, so, and I was extremely privileged to become a part of that journey and to work directly with the top management and leadership of the Headway.
That's amazing. I've actually used your app when I was in the US, and I found it very useful in a few topics that I was particularly interested in at the time, namely climate. But as I've worked for many B2C companies before, bootstrapping and B2C doesn't come into the same sentence. Yeah. So it sounds extremely hard, but I would love to know, how did you do it?
So there is no silver bullet, obviously. However, it's a combination of different, maybe not thousands, but millions of different steps. And the first things first, we started with just one product, which was a book summaries app. And at the same time, there was already Blinkist on the market, and they were leading in this niche and category. We were starting small, but at the same time, we were focusing precisely on the situation we were in, and we had to focus extremely on unit economy and getting it right from the very beginning. So we didn't have the luxury of attracting capital into our company as some other B2C competitors did, and we had to rely only on ourselves. So this laid the foundation of our DNA of being capital efficient, and that also allowed us to go through very turbulent times that were also happening and are continuously happening in Ukraine, but the whole team was extremely focused on getting things done and making it happen. So this road was full of being focused on very precise and strategic initiatives that were needed for this startup to happen, basically. While a pattern that I see in most B2C businesses, that lots of different features are being developed at the same time, and there is like no special understanding of what's driving what. While for us, it was crucial to get the data decision making in place. And actually, it was a very funny part that from day one, basically, we started gathering this meta level data, even though we didn't have enough resources to process it. But it's better to have some sort of data rather than no data. And that laid another cornerstone of our long-term strategy, that we are doing everything based on A/B testing, on specific data-driven decisions, and there is like no hypothesis that being tested just because we like it. So everything is being tested, and that has also been part of our success to date.
There's another challenge very quickly there, which is if you're B2C and you're doing all of this process you're describing bootstrapped at an early stage, you don't also have immediately the number of customers to get all of the data that you would like, or to test various different hypotheses, or to add like all the different nuances into what different customers around the world might want, etc. Right? So how did you tackle that specific challenge, particularly when you have the pressure of everything has to really work, that you were mentioning before, right? That you're very focused on exactly what you're testing, exactly what you're releasing.
The only recipe here is to fail fast and cheap. And and we adhered to it. So we definitely tested lots of different hypotheses, but we were not spreading thin, but rather, as I mentioned before, we were focusing on one specific test at a time. And then we got the cohort of users that was necessary to get the statistical significance of this A/B test. And only then we proceeded to either implementing the change or like just moving forward with our existing product and its form, obviously, and only then transitioning to the next A/B test. So obviously the velocity is reduced, but we are taking only informed decisions.
I'm curious, what was the first test or the first hypothesis that turned true?
That's a good question that I cannot answer because I joined early in Headway, but I was not the first employee or not even the second.
Okay, so as you said before, like there is competition in your space. Like people have used Blinkist, especially even in Europe, there is competition, right? Because Blinkist, I think, is also German. Like how did you differentiate your offering on day one?
Yeah, so first of all, let's just compare what Blinkist was offering at the time and what we started offering. So the core campaign of marketing at Blinkist, or even the value proposition to users, was focused around the idea of read like a CEO, get to know more books, become more productive. That's obviously not a thing that we are like distancing from, but at the same time, we were focusing on a much more wider audience, and we were catering to just generally busy adults, and we wanted to spread knowledge and enlightenment to a much broader audience, and that obviously resulted in a much more playful tone and much lighter mood of our application. Feature-wise, for example, we had spaced repetition from early on, and that also set another idea into ground, that we were focusing on a very short-term sessions, so that people could chip in for the first time, try it on, maybe just a session that would be a few minutes long, read through our like main insights from the books, or start listening to summary of a book that they were interested in, not necessarily finishing it even, but we got people one step closer, one step at a time, closer to their better version of themselves. And that was truly making like a lot of meaning for us internally. And then there were like a separation of customers who were core users who were using it either weekly or daily, while some other were using it much more seldom. However, that's still a very important audience for us, because we truly believe that people should start with something, and then it's much easier for them to retain on this track to their better versions of themselves.
Now that you mentioned kind of like the repeat side of things, like for me, I went in, I listened to like 3-4 books, like within a period of maybe like a week or two. But then since then, I haven't gone back to it. Like, how do you ensure that you get these repeat customers back onto the app?
So there are obviously many ways of working with engagement and retention. So we have a separate team of people working with email marketing, and that's one part of our retention strategy. Another part is obviously the push notifications that get people back. But at the same time, you need to take a very big step back and understand that in order to create this retained pattern that people are coming back, they need to understand the value of this product first of all. And sometimes people install some sort of an app they heard from other friends, and they just skip through all the onboarding screens, and then they are probably like don't get their expectations right because they were probably hoping for something else, and they drop out, and that's okay. That's the first contact points that they might have got, while other people focus on this onboarding screens that we provide them. And recently we were featured in Lenin's newsletter, Lenin Rechitsky newsletter, who was quite favorably mentioning our onboarding patterns and flows that some people could learn from. So we believe that the onboarding is a very important part of the customer flow to get the main idea of the product to the customers, to deliver it, and so that people truly understand what they're getting into, and obviously what they are paying for as well. And that definitely sets the stage for you to get this retentive patterns of usage of our customers.
And how do you get the word out? So the step before what we're talking about, how do you get the word out to get to all these users, especially when bootstrapped? And what's the strategy here? Is it more of a marketing thing? Is it more of a word of mouth thing, like focusing so much on the value that you deliver something so good that people will just share it with each other? What's the approach that you took?
It's a combination of many things, obviously. However, we started in such a mode that basically there was even no brand visible apart from the logo of the app. In the first years of the life of this startup, we were acquiring customers through different paid social channels so that they were getting fast into the app. We were getting the insights on how people interact with our products, what's lacking, what's already there, and what people love. So we were getting this continuous feedback, and that basically created a flywheel for us. When we are getting more customers, more data, better product, more customers, and so on and so on. So this is creating another flywheel of investment. And obviously, we were reinvesting a lot into getting new customers while also retaining those who already came to us.
I would like to shift gears a bit and kind of go back to your role, right? You're head of strategy and investments. So I'm very curious what a kind of bootstrap or like earlier stage startup strategy is with regards to acquisitions, like how many kind of companies you review a year, or like what does this function mean?
Basically, I'm running a broader function of like a CEO's office. So this encompasses everything from strategy and business partnerships to fundraising and M&A's evaluation. So with this in mind, I interact with quite a lot of different groups, distinctive teams in our company, and especially leadership members. And that allows us to tailor our strategy. And strategy is such a loud word that it might not even bring any idea of what is it. So in our case, there was like a very big pivotal moment when we started talking to different VCs, and they had this idea that the market of book summaries, because we started with just one app, was quite limited. And right now, I would say that we definitely moved far beyond the threshold that they were setting in their estimates of the market just with our Headway product. However, that brought us to the idea that probably we should go into the super app territory and to expand the target market that we were going after. However, with lots of thinking behind that, lots of discussions internally, learning from already existent super apps, we just came to the idea that we should continue either focusing on the user experience and user interfaces, on the customer journey in our products. And while the screen estate is quite limited, we should focus on creating the best experience for specific pains and needs that were there. And that basically brought us to our next venture, which was Nibble. And Nibble is the first baby from our ecosystem, which followed this target market expansion. And Nibble is an all-around knowledge app that basically packs knowledge into short lessons, which can be combined into courses, and it spans from STEM to history, arts, literature, so basically a very wide array of different topics.
Very interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, super interesting. So we always ask some sort of Europe-related question, as you can tell from the podcast's name. We keep our eyes there. And I think having you here allows us to shed light on something that we haven't really asked, which is the opportunities in Ukraine. And I had the chance to talk 2 years ago as a journalist to Rostem Umerov. He was leading at the time the investment sort of call. He had come to Greece asking for people saying, invest in Ukraine. There's a lot of bold options there, right? So from your perspective, what is it that Ukraine has to offer in this as a competitive advantage, so to speak? And how can we sort of bridge Ukraine more to investors to make some of these brilliant ideas come to reality?
I would slightly rework this question in order to answer it.
By all means.
If we look at US venture pool, it's roughly estimated at $120 billion per year, just venture pool, not the private equity, not the public markets. Then Europe has combined roughly 43 billion of venture financing per annum, while Ukraine for the 2024 invested only, at least in publicly announced rounds, roughly $800 million. So this is a relatively small venture.
More than Greece.
Definitely more than Greece.
More double of Greece, but yeah.
So, but still relatively small. And this definitely makes companies, first of all, rely on themselves in their business building, and it definitely builds in this efficiency with the capital that they have.
Yeah.
And that makes a lot of companies much more resilient, because once I was in the US at one of the forums, and our CEO was speaking at the panel with another edtech founder who mentioned such a term that was basically unknown at that time, that efficient growth. Efficient growth? What do you mean? And for us, it was the only way to grow from early on. So this resilience is basically ingrained, and I believe that this comes as a core competitive advantage of Ukrainian companies and Ukrainian startups. And I believe that so many more companies will emerge in the next few years, and especially with there is like a debate that probably in 2025 there will be much more activity in terms of the VC and cross-border, obviously, investments and M&A activity should be on the rise. So with that in mind, I believe much more Ukrainian companies will come into the spotlight, because lots of our companies operate in this stealth mode that only our customers basically know about us, not anyone else. Because it's like, there is a saying in Ukraine, if we try to translate it, it's like this: the more silent you go, the further you will come. So it's something like that. And lots of our Ukrainian companies operate in this realm, basically.
I would like to close with one question around what is one myth about operators that you would like to debunk?
I would like maybe to come not to one, but to two myths to debunk, but they will be quick. The first one is that there is at least in my bubble that I operate in, bootstrapping is quite often synonymous with being small. But that is simply not the truth. And bootstrapped companies just are much more efficient, and at certain period of time, bootstrapped company might become a venture-funded company.
We actually had the CEO of Scrooge that was bootstrapped for like a good 15 years.
So that's just a matter of a perspective and how you view it. But there are also quite large bootstrapped companies that never raised and just decided to retain the whole equity pool for themselves, yes, and operate successfully within their niche and market. And the second part, as I'm quite involved with investor relations, the one myth I was continuously going through personally is that usually CEOs should fundraise, and that becomes just a full-time job for CEO to fundraise if they go to that path. In our case, we were not fundraising, but we still believe that at a certain point in time, there might be a situation when we are going, for example, for an IPO. So to do that in a traditional path, you need to do a pre-IPO round, right? And to do that successfully, you better build your brands and relations as well. So with that in mind, we gradually started building out the relations. And when you are not fundraising, but you are building relations, it's not that logical to involve CEO at this stage, because that's a very significant distraction from the core operations. So with that in mind, I was taking over this function, and when the right time comes, I will just provide this context to the CEO or to the management team, and they will take over to make the final vote and to decide on how we are making it work further.
Super interesting conversation. So both for telling us how to unlock the secrets of bootstrapped growth and for showing us the value of resilience. Oleks, thank you so much for being here with us today, live from the DOERS Summit.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us for another episode of EUROPEBUILDS, where we show that the European ecosystem is no longer an underdog story.
If you liked our episode and want to hear more, follow EUROPEBUILDS on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Born's YouTube channel.